Hi guys, and welcome to my podcast, Coffee with Rogue. This is where I get together with my fellow creators and take a sneak peek behind the scenes on their lives and how content creation affects them. So, let's meet our guests. So welcome to Coffee with Rogue. Thank you so much for joining me and being on. I was so excited that we could finally get to chat. Ostardva, it's really freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It would be great. Would you introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yeah, of course. My name's Ostardva. I'm a Final Fantasy 14 streamer, and I've been on Twitch for about 3 years. I've been doing content creation as a hobby for probably like 5 or 6 years, just like casual stuff on YouTube. Did YouTube for a bit of vlogging, deleted all that. Then went on to sort of like gameplay and face cam, and then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try this Final Fantasy thing, and just been doing Final Fantasy for like three and a half years.
Nice. So I will love Final Fantasy 14. It's like we're so excited for Endwalker coming up right now. It's insane. You did blogging and stuff, or vlogging?
Yeah, like back in sort of, it would have been after I left uni, and maybe a year or two after that, like 2014. I basically got into kind of like the hi guys sort of vlogging, and I went to like a few like YouTube cons and stuff. And things like that, and I got to about 100 subscribers, and it was nothing major, and but I just had fun with it. It was like, you know, the whole like getting the camera, being creative, editing, and that's how I sort of started with that as like a hobby. Fun fact, actually, when I went to the Distant Worlds concert recently, I met someone back from my vlogging days, and they were like, "Oh, hey," and they called me by my YouTube name, which I haven't heard in like 7 years.
Oh my goodness, that must have been so surreal.
Yeah, it was really weird. But yeah, so that's how that started, really. And then just like there's a video game Armor Core that I really like, which I then started doing videos for that, and that's how I learned OBS. And then I had put my face cam in the corner, and I'd change my layout every other video, and that was really fun. So yeah, that's how YouTube started for me.
Nice. And how did you get onto Twitch?
I got onto Twitch through 14. So when I was on YouTube, I started streaming 14 just a bit, and it was like a test. I thought, you know, just because I like Final Fantasy 14, I've played it since the PS3 beta. And so around then I started streaming it, and nobody really watched, and it was fine. It was more for me. And then I thought, you know, I'll look on Twitch. I knew about Twitch from other people, and saw that 14 was way bigger on there, you know, easier to find it with the directory and stuff. And then I found at the time he was called Heal Me Harry, who is now called Hoopo. And yeah, that's how I met like Amali. I think I possibly met you either in Harry's or possibly Tequila's maybe. But yeah, and I just started watching Harry like all the time because I was signed off work at the time, and so my social interaction was watching Harry play 14, and then I started streaming it, and then that became a new social thing for me.
That's so cool, because like that's basically what happened to me. Yeah, like that was at the time where I was at the start of, you know, my journey of being at home a lot. And I found Harry at the time, and I spent a lot of time there, and I used to be a moderator for him. And I remember meeting you in Harry's stream, and then we kind of cross-pollinated over to Tequila's, and it was just like, yeah. It was so fun. So yeah, like shout out to Harry aka Hoopo, who is really awesome and has been a huge impact for a lot of us. Me, you, Mally, Tequila, a whole bunch of people. Like, he's had a huge impact on our streaming journeys and our lives in general, because, you know, a lot of us hung out with him when we weren't streaming. So nice, very nice man. I've met him. He is such a sweetheart. So
I met him in the most recent fan fest abroad. Was it Frankfurt or Paris? It was Paris.
Yeah, Paris. Yeah.
I met him in Paris, and I don't get like emotional over celebrities, or if someone says who's your crush, or like whenever you, and I don't get bothered about that. And when I met Harry, it was just like I didn't have like a fanboy moment. It was like an emotional moment. Harry's gotten me through so many tough times, and when I met him, I'm like,
yeah.
But yeah,
I know that feeling so well. So speaking of Twitch and, you know, starting streaming, how when you started streaming, like, how did you feel when you started, like, trying to get to know your viewers and, had people starting to come in and watch you? Like, how was that experience for you?
It was just really exciting. I am very much like a puppy with like new things and energy. So of course, like when you hit go live and you've got like your start screen up and you're waiting to see if somebody comes along or says hi,
Hmm.
like the nerves are there. But when the moment I see someone, I'm like, hey, I'm just like wired because I can't believe that somebody's turned up. And that's how it was for me. Like I couldn't believe, and I only, like I was a very typical like pre-affiliate. I'd get like 1, 2, 3, 4 viewers, and I would maintain that up to affiliate and as I
Yeah.
went around streams. But yeah, I just felt like really excited. And for me, I kind of aware of my own behavior and stuff. It was like, I'm being validated. There's somebody's there. They want to watch
Ah.
me. But
Hmm.
the way that I see Twitch, and so I've always seen Twitch for me is that like it's um, I can play video games and
Hmm.
be social with people. And
Yep.
so when somebody comes into chat, I'm like, oh, great, I get to hang with this person today. And this person's going to put this meme in chat whilst I'm, just doing my roulettes or whatever it
Hmm.
might be. So yeah, it was just puppy excitement really all the time. Yeah.
Do you still feel that way even now? Like, you've been streaming for like 3 years now, so how is it different now to when it was back then?
I still feel the same way. I have members. I have members of my community where I'm really glad that they're there. It's kind of
Yeah.
like going to the. It's kind of like going to the pub, and this is a sort of like scenario that a Lower Wendy painted out to me. A
Hmm.
Lower Wendy made a really lovely scenario for streamers. That you're like running a bar, you're running a pub,
Hmm.
and you're standing behind the bar running the pub, and you don't know which punters are going to come in every day,
Yep.
and you have to put on the smile regardless. And that's really like helped me with like this sort of like anxiety around viewers leaving or your regulars leaving or staying. And whenever a regular comes into my bar, comes into my stream, I'm like, yeah, they came back, and that's so good to see them.
Yeah.
Like I have the main one for me would be like, or got a few, but the one to point out which has been really nice has been Tebow, like one of my mods. And I actually
Hmm.
went for dinner with him a few weeks ago. He was just near
Nice.
where he was just like around where I live, and he was like, you want to go to the pub? I'm like, oh. So again, I just get that excitement of seeing it's just that human connection and being like, hey, we
Yeah.
want to talk to each other and spend time with each other, and I get the warm fuzzies.
Warm fuzzies is great. Like, we all want them.
Mm.
And relationships and building those friendships online, I think, is one of those. It's for us who are online all the time. It's just part of course of life. Like, it's really normal for us. I know that for a lot of people who don't spend a lot of time online, they're like, I don't get it. Why don't you go out and like meet some real people? I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever had that experience. Like, I don't know if you speak to if you've got like parents you speak to and stuff, like, or family members you talk to about Twitch, but it's not like the easiest conversation.
No, so when I had this conversation with my mum and dad, I didn't really have it, but I remember put on Facebook, like, works for Twitch as affiliate or whatever it was, just
Mm-hmm.
because, it's exciting to get your affiliate at the time. And when I told my parents what it was, they summed up, they were like, so you put your face on a stream and get paid for it. And I'm like, no, not like that. That's not what I do. But so they were a bit sort of iffy about it. But I think everyone around me, family wise, and people I know have gotten used to it because I've always
Mm,
made friends online since I was about 8. I have
right.
like colleagues or old school friends, but I've always made friends online.
Mm,
And my family are now used to the fact that I make stronger connections with people online than I do normally around me.
right.
My first friend who I met on Habbo Hotel when I was 8.
Oh my goodness.
Um, I know. We spoke for years on Habbo Hotel, and I ended up going to meet him. Like my dad came with me, and his dad went with him to make sure that neither
Oh,
of us were like dangerous or whatever.
yeah.
And from then on, my parents were like, "Oh, people on the internet are like real and nice,
They're
and
the
not
real
all of them.
people.
They're not like like everyone my child is talking to isn't a pedophile." And I'm like, "Yeah, that is pretty much it. But you just have to be careful."
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Speaking of real people and maybe one of the unsavory kind, have you ever had like a scary experience where you found maybe some unsavory folk while you're on Twitch, for example?
Yeah, I've only ever had it really. I've had like 1 or 2 hate raids for being gay, but they were in the past and luckily dealt with. But that doesn't particularly count. I've only ever had one person who will remain nameless, and I've not seen him in my community since,
Mhm.
but they basically donated like a lot of bits. It was like whatever the red badge is, like 200,000, I think it is, something
Oh
like that.
wow.
20,000, like 20,000. And I've never had anything like it since. I'm not a very like I don't, none of us make much out of Twitch, but I have like 5 subs,
Aw.
but or something like that anyway. But no, this guy donated a lot of bits to me and a few other streamers in my circle.
Mm.
And then the way that he interacted with my chat was by being depreciative towards me and
Oh.
would be like, "Oh, look, Ost died again. Typical. He's going to die again in 2 minutes."
Mm.
Or look at that shirt he's wearing. Geez, he wore that last stream. And I kind of, I initially passed it off as banter and would be like, hey, yeah, look at me wearing the same shirt. I get it.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I actually called him out and just said, that you're annoying me. Like, I'm not here to be your little scapegoat.
Mhm.
And I think this is because you gave me money. And he's like, no, this is just how I interact with people. And I said, well, no, I've been in other people's streams and you don't do this to other people.
Mhm.
Like, and this person actually found me at FanFest in
Oh.
Frankfurt, and the one thing he then immediately said to me, and I was a bit freaked out by it, he said, What made you choose that underwear today?" And I'm like, "Excuse me?"
What?
So obviously I've been sitting on a chair and my underwear was showing or something, but he just said that, and I was like, "What?"
That's
And
so creepy.
and I didn't have the nerve to like lash out or get sassy or anything, but I just sort of said, "Well, I like it," and then I kind of just blanked him and then just didn't speak to him after that, and went back to who I was hanging out with at the time because I went to that fan fest with Neon Genesis and sort of just
Uh-huh.
hugged him for like the next hour. But yeah, so that's probably the only person who I've sort of tolerated for a while and then got rid of and sort of said, "Never want that again." I get a
Yeah.
lot of sort of bold person stuff as well. I get people who come in and go, "Do you polish it? Is it like, what's it like being a sentient egg?" And I'm just like,
Ugh.
whatever, grow up.
Yeah, the
It's not too often,
trolls
like.
trolls online, man. They have no self-control. And it's scary when you have someone, especially those who like pay money and anything that gives them the right to oh, I'm just gonna criticize you in any way that I see fit and you don't have any say in it. It's like, well, actually I do, because I'm gonna just ban you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's been a few times where like there was one particular the people are probably gonna know who this is, but like, there was one particular person for me who like wrote stories and they said that I was in their story, and then they were like, okay, like it was about I don't know Fantasyland
No.
or something. And
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, you're in my story, and so is this streamer, and so is that streamer. And then they would start to get weirdly sexual about the whole thing. And they were very, very, like, anti-women, because I actually read the first chapter of their book. Because at first, I
Dang.
thought that it was like, oh, this is nice, this is cute. Naive me. No, turns out it was really kind of scary and sketchy. So, and, like, I've seen other people where it's one of those things where people live in the same country as you, and then they'll be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I know where you live. Yeah, 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 I know that area." And then they'll start to call out those areas. Like, so that's really
Mhm.
scary. And I think sometimes viewers and fans, especially, like, get excited and they think, "Oh, I'm really like close to this person that I really like." And then before you know it, it's like, actually, I'm gonna have to ban you because you're trying to dox me.
Yeah, you see that like a lot where like people, because Twitch is like a really social space for the
Yeah.
most part, and especially at like sort of the level of Twitch that I'm at, there's a lot of us where it's like, because there's a few enough of us in a stream to just feel like you're sort of like, gathering outside Nando's or something like that. That's a really bad analogy. But
Chicken
um
Nando's.
yeah, having a cheeky Nando's. But because there's like enough of you that you just feel like you're sitting around a table at the pub, people get that false impression that like they're that you're friends. And this is
Mm,
no comment to anyone in my stream, because admittedly, I am very much like everyone in my stream is an absolute babe, and I just sort of like I am on that level with them. But if
yeah.
someone was there to then, like you say, go over that line and say, "Oh, hey, I think you live in X place, and how about we have coffee this weekend?" That's where it turns into, actually, as a streamer, do I have to say this person is a friend and I have to let them in and be responsible for that boundary,
Yeah.
or do I have to set the boundary and say, actually, no, you're a viewer and sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's kind of you. I don't know. I've had to do that before, like where somebody wanted to meet up, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't." And I really liked the person. Like I got on with them very well, and I was just like, actually, do you know what? I have to kind of set this line where like I don't want to like meet people IRL. I just want to be a hermit in my house, like me alone.
Yeah, people will be like, "Oh, yeah, I want to meet you," and they've got this thing of like idea that you're like this in real life, and
Yeah.
or whatever, and then you'll meet up. You just don't want to meet them and be like, "I'm like that." I don't want people to meet me and go, "Oh no."
Yeah. See, I kind of wish sometimes that I was a VTuber from the start so that then nobody knew my face. But
Yeah.
but now for the most part, if I go anywhere, I can just hide because everybody's looking for the anime waifu. They're not looking for me.
You mean you don't look like that?
I mean, I do, but come on. I would say that my boobs don't jiggle as much.
Oh no, not as much. Boing boing, got it.
Boing boing, yeah. Respect the
As a gay
boba.
man, I was gonna say, as a gay man, I'm not aware of the physics.
So speaking of being a gay man, you did mention that you got like hate rated and stuff. Like, how was that? Like, that must have been a scary experience, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was. They weren't pleasant. So I had two different kinds of hate raids, which is probably good for like other sort of LGBTQ and streamers to be aware of. Where one of them was basically that someone came in and did exclamation mark Discord, hadn't met them before,
Mm.
and I didn't think anything about it at the time. And then one of my mods just kind of put in chat, asked check Discord, had to go BRB, and the guy had basically botted my entire Discord with hate speech on every single channel, including channels where there were admin privileges, and I don't know how he'd gotten over them, and even like my announcements.
What?
I hadn't, and so luckily my mods just went through and cleared all the messages basically. Whilst I was streaming, they were like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." But so from then on, every time someone I don't recognize puts in my Discord or my socials command, I'm immediately keeping an eye on my Discord, and that happened probably like 2 years ago, and I still haven't. I'm still tuned into that because of. And then other ones are just in chat. It's just in chat. It's not often the ones in chat, if at all. Like I say, I'm quite fortunate, to be fair, in the spaces that I'm in. I'm quite privileged that I haven't been raided as much.
Yeah.
But when I have in chat, I've been follow botted as well. But you just have to pretend like it's not happening. You sort of like, so when I got hate raided, it's sort of like time out, and just continue streaming. It's a bit like ignoring the bully. You either with the follow botting, that was a bit of a different story. Where I went from, I think it was like 200 followers to 3,500 in the space of 10 minutes.
Whoa.
And that took me about 3 months to get rid of. And Twitch were like, "Yeah, no, we've noticed the behavior, but it will just get like pulled out automatically in our sweeps." And I'm like, "When?" Because it was really, when you're like trying to hit a milestone or you're really proud of your journey, and then somebody just completely inflates your data. It's like, no, that's not who I am, and I don't want to look like a streamer with 3,500 followers when that's not me. Yeah. So those were all a bit weird. I wouldn't say I took them too much to heart. I always get angry at that sort of stuff in like where I go, "How dare you? Like, I'm fucking great. Like, how dare you? Like, have you seen this?" And you're just
fabulous.
jealous. Exactly. Or it's just kind of like, I've learned from listening to there's a podcast called The Power of Vulnerability by Brene Brown. I'm kind of big into this sort of stuff. And basically I've seen now whenever someone lashes out like that, they're often projecting their own shame or their own guilt over something. And so whenever I ever get hate raided or someone comes in and makes a comment about my head, I'm just like, you know what? You're projecting something, and that's not my problem.
Yeah.
And that's how I get over it.
That's a good way to deal with it, especially like because those things can get you. They can really affect you like mentally. And if someone's coming in and they're like bombarding you with hate, or they're trying to troll you and stuff, I know that I've been told before, and it's been really, really upsetting. And you try not to take it to heart, but I guess with more experience and time on the platform, you kind of do get better at dealing with those kind of things.
For sure. It's like I basically use my teacher skill set for Twitch, because I used to be a primary school teacher, so like 5 to 11-year-olds, and managing Twitch chat is very similar to 5 to 11-year-olds. It's
That's
just like
amazing.
you like, so for me, when I'm interacting with friends or new colleagues, or I do volunteering as well outside of for like a trading card community on Monday. So I've been running this community for like 2 years,
Mhm.
and with all of these things, I basically start by going, "These are my expectations, and they will never move."
Yeah.
Like you can try and say, "Oh, but Mr. Well, let's just say I'm Mr. Smith in this scenario, but I'm not. Mr. Smith, can I go to the toilet?" And it's the classic, like, "No, you can't. We've just had break time." And
Yep.
my standards never moved. So when like somebody comes into chat and makes like a joke, and they're like, "Oh, but I was just joking," I'm like, "No, that's my standard. You hit
Yep.
it, get out." And
Love it.
it's so, and it's with all of this sort of stuff, and I feel like it's important we maintain our own standards, because
Yeah.
if we don't, like Mama Ru says, if you don't love yourself, how are you gonna love somebody else?
Yes, let's go. I love that so much.
Yeah.
I always love the one where they say, uh, if them bitches ain't paying your bills, you pay them bitches no mind.
Bad. Yes.
I love that. That's how I live life.
Yeah, exactly.
um, so you talked about being a teacher. You were a teacher with, as well as streaming on Twitch, right?
Yeah, I have so many interesting teacher Twitch stories. But yeah, so I was teaching for a few years, but also I worked in schools as like an assistant for a few years. So I've worked with like mainstream kids. I've worked with children with mental health issues, with behavior issues. I'm kind of
Mm,
like more of a specialist behavior specialist, and
right.
sort of I then worked in a mental health a little bit, but I was a classroom teacher with my own class of 30.
Mhm.
And towards the end of my teaching career at the time, I had a child. I spoke about this in your chat actually, but I can sort of say it for the video. But I had a child who was coming in, going, "Oh yeah, I streamed on Twitch last night and made this much from my viewers on Fortnite." And I was
Yeah.
like, "You're 10."
Wow.
And so I ended up basically like talking to management about it, and sort of basically having to report him and on Twitch, and but then the school didn't know about Twitch or YouTube really. They just knew like, oh, YouTube videos. Schools are very like antiquated places when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
And so they said, "Oh, can you do like an assembly on Twitch and YouTube?" And immediately the first thing was, "Mr. Smith, are you a streamer?" And it's a bit like trying to make teachers come out for like National Gay Teacher Day. I'm not about that life.
Uh-huh.
But I said to my class at the time, "Yes, I'm a streamer. No, you don't get to know my name, and
Mm.
I am legally allowed to." So I had that relationship with my classes where it was like, oh, I was the cool teacher that did Twitch and played games, you know.
How do you deal with working in like a, because it's a full-time job teaching? How do you deal
Mm.
with that, and handling children and streaming all at once in your that point in your life?
So at that point, because now I'm more of like a 9 to 5, but I still work in education and technology, but it's 9 to 5, luckily.
Mm.
But back then, and even now, really, scheduling was my god. I am like, if there's not a post-it note, I'm not living. Any teacher would be like, "Yeah, I need post-it notes. I need like
Yeah.
tabs for my books." I'm waving a
Mm.
pen around, for God's sake.
Such a teacher thing to do.
Yeah, but I would, when I was teaching, I would sit down every Saturday, and
Mhm.
I'd have like a weekly planner, and I'd look ahead. I'd sit down on Saturday and plan until the next Saturday, not for just like my lessons, but also like, when am I going to do my shopping? When am I going to do my planning? What night do I want to have pizza and like sit and chill? And if I planned that in advance, I'd make it happen, rather
Yeah.
than like getting home and doing all my marketing and be like, oh bugger, I've got no time to do this stuff. I planned it in advance, and the
Mhm.
more I found I set the intention that I was gonna stream on Thursday, the more I made it happen. It took a few weeks of scheduling to like actually get it, but it's
Mhm.
typical like habit setting. Like I got the habit and made it happen. I streamed more on weekends, to be fair. Like I've always in streaming done like X days during the work week, but
Mhm.
done most of my streaming at the weekend, or my longer streams at the weekend, just because like weekends are great. Um,
Yeah,
but,
weekends are awesome.
but yeah, it was very much as well like saying when enough is enough with teaching, because you can get carried away with like perfectionism of like, this lesson needs to be great, and I've got this child who can't speak much English. I really should make them like 6 more word cards to put in their little word bank.
Mhm.
And it's like, no, I need to delegate. My old coach used to say this to me. He used to be like, delegate. Basically,
Yeah.
the phrase was, he was like, just if you're not an expert at it, it's probably worth delegating. Like, who wants to wash their own car when there are loads of car washes everywhere? So that's what I
Yeah.
was like with teaching, where I was like, you know what, I don't want to spend the next 12 hours of my life laminating pieces of A4.
Yeah.
I'm going to delegate that to, unfortunately, like my assistant or my mum who wants to help, or my partner at the time, so that I could actually do my job, which was teaching children,
Hmm.
not cutting out paper.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually wanted to be a teacher at one point.
Well, it's a really great job. It's just it's more of a lifestyle. It's more of literally
Yeah.
like that's why you don't get to have holiday. You have your holidays, but you don't get to book any off. So if you've got like a dentist appointment or or like a wedding that would
Hmm.
conflict with work, you don't get holiday. You're not allowed
Oh,
to take it
really?
off. Yeah, it's literally you get term times. You work all week for those children, and I'm like, no, I have a life.
Wow. I actually didn't know that. That's crazy. I guess it
Yeah,
makes sense, but like it sounds quite strict.
it depends on like obviously where you work and stuff, and there are like and sort of like your management and stuff. Because there were people in, so I would ask for like a dentist appointment because I've got like braces and I have retainers, and I'd
Mm.
always ask for time off for like that. I'd be like, can I have like half a day here and I'll work it off here, or I'll I made adjustments. They'd say
Yeah.
no, and then there'd be someone who was best friends with the head teacher and would be like, oh, can I go and watch my child's sports day? And they get it. And that stuff is
Oh.
rife. That stuff is rife in school. It is like RuPaul's best friend race.
Oh, wow.
It is. So that's one of the reasons I left, is because if you weren't friends with the best person, you were trodden on, but I had I am aware that my experience in like education was pretty rough. Like I always worked in rough schools, and the school just lost a head teacher and that kind of stuff. So I know
Yeah.
there's great places out there.
Yeah. You work now the classic 9 to 5.
Yes, work 9 to 5. What a way to make a living. But yeah, I work like basically I work with Apple products, not for Apple. But
Mhm.
my job is basically like, hey, there's a school right there. They want to like make use of Apple products in the classroom to enrich kids' learning. How can we do it?
Uh,
And normally, like this is like for it's like a salesy kind of thing. But
uh-huh.
because I'm actually like a qualified teacher, I go in there and actually know how to do it, and
Oh,
sort of
cool.
and so I go into like inspire sort of teachers and schools on, hey, you've got like 6 iPads that you only use for internet browsing. Let's like not do that anymore because that's basic. And that's part of my job. So it's really nice because I still get to talk about teachery stuff and think about teachery stuff, but I'm surrounded by technology, which is great. And I get to do streaming and content creation for work as well, which is nice.
Oh, cool. Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, they just sort of took it on as like I basically told my boss about my hobby of streaming.
Yeah.
He saw a little bit of it and then was like, "We could do this for work." I'm like, "Yeah, we could." And now every now and then Apple say, "Hey, do you want to do a stream on this cool thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Ah, that's so cool. It's nice to see someone's streaming skills and experience being used for something other than just playing video games and stuff.
Yeah,
Like you
it's
can use
been
it for your job. That's awesome.
yeah, it's been really nice actually. Like my work YouTube channel, which is kind of like my little pet project, just hit like 100 subscribers, and I got a custom
Ah,
URL. So I'm like, oh, it's actually working.
that's awesome.
And people
That's
are
so
like,
cool.
oh, I showed my customer your video you did the other day, and they loved it, and now they bought like 12 things, and I'm like, it's doing its job.
It's doing it. That's what I wanted to do. That's so cool. So you're essentially managing a Twitch channel, a full-time job, and a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
All doing like different things, kinda. That's
I'm all
cool.
good.
And do you feel like, because I know that 2020 and 2021 has been kind of rough for all of us, like, do you feel like you're now in a more grounded space? Because I know just because I'm your friend and stuff and we talk, like, for you as well as me, the last year and a half has been kind of rough, like, really tough. I don't know how you feel about things now. And
Yeah, I mean, like the last year has been, I mean, rough for me, like for various reasons, as well as like COVID and stuff. I already took COVID as like a kick up the ass. Like when I got sent home from work and they got the phone call of like, "Oh, you're being furloughed." I didn't know what it meant at the time, so I almost cried, like, "Have I lost my job?" And no, I
oh,
haven't. But no, I actually just, like started exercising a lot. Like I just went, you know what,
you
screw it.
did.
I'm getting a bit heckin' chonky, so I need to do something about that.
Yeah.
Started going for walks all the time. I got a personal trainer who actually I left 2 days ago, so huzzah.
Oh.
But yeah, and got really on it. I lost about 13 kilograms in
Nice.
like just around 6 months. and lost loads off my waist, went down like 2 sizes, started putting on a bit of muscle, and kind of just found a new rhythm. So that
Mhm.
kind of distracted me from personal stuff that was going on.
Mhm.
I had lots of personal things going on, which are kind of like resolved now.
Mhm.
But like during the tail end of COVID, I've like moved into like where I'm living now, which is like temporary place with people. It's like studenty kind of living. Whereas
Mhm.
during COVID, I actually lived in somewhere more stable.
Yeah.
So I think because I was stuck, not I wasn't really stuck indoors in COVID because I exercised a lot and went out, but because socially we were all kind of stuck indoors and stuck
Yeah.
in one place, COVID kind of made me see where I'd settled and I didn't want to settle anymore. And I was compromising way too much in loads of parts of my life.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of confronted it all, it was like, now that I've confronted things, it's like we're going up, we're getting better.
And do you think that, like, by confronting that, or even just before you confronted it and you felt settled and stuff, do you think that that impacted you and your content creation?
It did because as I got more, because I have general anxiety disorder,
Mhm.
and I've always advertised that on Twitch. So like I have GAD and I'm fine with it. But I on my days that I'm not able to manage my GAD,
Mhm.
I find it harder to stream. I've never stopped to stream because of GAD.
Mhm.
However, it makes it harder to go from like my start screen to my face cam or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I've said to my viewers a few times actually, if I'm taking breaks every 20 minutes, it's because I'm anxious, and it's not nothing chat has done. It's
Yeah.
just because I've got catastrophic thinking going on in my head every 20 minutes. Like, it might be, oh, I've got like 7 viewers today, and I had 15 last week. Oh, I'm crap at this,
Mm.
or like might be because something completely random, like I'm X years old and I can't cook spaghetti bolognese, which I can now. Um, and when those things are like circling every like 30 seconds whilst you're trying to entertain people and not be self conscious about yourself. So yeah, when I was going through like personal things during that, it made streaming harder. I actually got like, I streamed more during those times as like a fixation and distraction. So I'd like, at the worst, I was streaming 3 to 4 days a week,
Mhm.
which impacted my home life because it was like, oh, you're always on the PC, you're always streaming. And I'd be like, well, I'm doing that because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other reason for me, and imply from that what you will, um, but it exhausted me because I wasn't used to streaming that much. I was anxious if I change game. People don't
Mhm.
want to watch roulette 4 days a week.
Yep.
Some people do. So it actually got more draining for me because the kind of content I do and that Twitch is generally a light hobby that I enjoy that I would love to do more of, but I know that it's a hobby and have to be. If I tried to treat Twitch as like a job, I would be burning myself out really
Yeah.
easily. So I keep it as a hobby, but because it was a hobby, I started not enjoying it because I was doing it too much, and I turned it into a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's a space where quite a lot of us get into, where we know it's a hobby, we enjoy it when we have that like mental state where we're like, yeah, this is like something for fun, and then before you know it, you're getting so wrapped up in it. It's like, actually, I'm making this less fun because I'm trying to make it something more than what it is. And
Mhm.
there's this balance we have to strike. Like, if we really want it to be our job, that's great, but we have to like remember, it's quite a long slog to be able to do something like that full time and make it the way we want to make it. So I totally get you. Like, I'm in a position right now where I treat this and everything around it as a hobby.
Mhm.
And I do it for fun, and I do it to experience new things. So like, this podcast is one of those things, streaming is another one, like I have a bunch of things that I'm doing that I just do for um I guess branching out for my own skills and seeing what I'm good at, because with streaming, there's so much you could do with it. Like, there's so the scope is so wide that you can basically take it wherever you want. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
like I took it into my 9 to 5 job, so
Exactly. Well, there you go. See? That's so awesome. I mean, like, that I don't know anyone else that does it in their job. I think that's pretty unique.
yeah, it's
Uh,
really nice. It's like because doing it for my job has made me think about not streaming on YouTube for personal, but how I should like because it's pretty standard, use YouTube for Twitch, your Twitch content. I just don't because it's that layer of turning it from work to the hobby to job. But
Yeah.
sometimes I look at the YouTube side of it from work and go, yeah, it's all right. Like I could do that maybe.
And you are. I mean, it sounds like you're doing pretty well considering it's something just started it, right? So it's
Yeah.
doing pretty well from the sounds of it. That's pretty awesome.
Mm, yeah.
So I COVID, jeez. I just when the minute I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's been a rough one. So when it comes to COVID, and you know, you said that you managed to get to like the gym and you're working out and stuff like that. Um, how was it for you being, you know, you said you've got general anxiety disorder. That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't heard of that term. So how did you deal with general anxiety disorder while having your own stuff happening in your personal life and streaming more and going to the gym, and like how did all of that feel at once when we were having the last year? Because it must have been tough.
So with GAD, and brief backstep, I had GAD is almost why I started getting into Twitch, because when I was signed off work from
Hmm.
teaching, because teaching ruined my mental health. Or, I take my own responsibility in that, of course, but
Mm.
I was signed off with general anxiety disorder. And GAD is basically as it sounds, like generally most things make you anxious. There's no specific trigger. You've just trained your brain to a point to go around in what's known as like a little feedback loop of
Yeah.
like you think about something, it makes you have a physical side effect, and then the
Hmm.
physical side effect gives you a negative thought, and you just go around this endless loop.
Like a race car
Um,
track without an exit.
Exactly,
Hmm.
yeah. It's like having the zoomies, but not the good kind. Um, so yeah, I started watching Harry, Hoopo, when I
Mm.
was, like, anxious, and just, like, being social with him would, like, soothe me, and I'd feel normal again, and then my thoughts would just evaporate.
Yeah.
So that was, like, a few years before COVID. So by COVID's point, I'd been in a settled household for a few years. I was feeling mostly content, and I've been very learned about my GAD. I've read up. I've spoken at a conference as like a not as like I basically I've spoken at a conference because the therapist I had was like, "You are really good at listening and like acting out your therapy, and I'd love you to speak as a patient." So
Yeah.
I spoke at this conference. So during COVID, on question, um, as it started to decline a little bit, I guess I tried to be a bit more forgiving of myself. That was sort of like a new thing, was like forgiveness, because it's very easy when you're feeling like crap, however that might be, whether you're feeling anxious or angry or sad. It's
Yeah.
really easy just to like punish yourself and be like,
Mm.
I'm really shit, and look at all the evidence of why I'm really shit.
Yeah.
And I did the opposite and was like, so if I was having a down day or anxious, I'd be like, I'm feeling super anxious about this, but hold on a minute. Like, actually, I'm feeling anxious about what, I don't know, like the fact that we've only got 4 eggs in the fridge or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can't think of it. But actually, when I look at it, I've got so much food in the house. I've got no problems. Let's put things into perspective here. It might be
Hmm.
like, yeah, I can't go out at the weekend, and my stream yesterday might not have been what I wanted it to be, but
Hmm.
I still get to go to the gym. I still got friends I can speak to online. It was all about perspective and forgiveness. And when on the forgiveness thing, it was very much like, give yourself a break and look at what you've done today.
Yeah.
Not, so it'd be like if I did stream and I kind of, oh, that wasn't as good. I could give yourself a break because you've just streamed and you still had X viewers and you still got X subs and you actually cleared that bit of content you've wanted to do for like 6 months.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with like mental health. It's a very active process for me. Like
Hmm.
people who like expect medication, expect meditation, and expect things to make them better. I
Hmm.
like it, that's not how it works for me. I have to actively pick myself up
Yep.
and talk to myself. So that's
Hmm.
how I kind of dealt with all that in COVID. It wasn't nice with my anxiety kind of resurfacing, because over the last like year and a half, it's been like emotions I haven't felt for like 5 years, like the
Uh-huh.
sudden surge of like panic. And I can only describe it as like it's panic you can't control because it goes around and around, and it actually gets to the point where like my throat closes up when I'm anxious.
Oh
Like, and I don't
wow.
mind sharing it to people, so it's not like I can't breathe or anything. That'd be really dramatic. But it's kind of, when you ugly cry and like your face hurts, you're like, oh, oh. I
Yeah.
ugly cry from like my throat, and then I start to hyperventilate, and that's what I mean by like I'm having horrible thoughts. It's having a physical side effect,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and so like when you have those again for the first time, it's hard to like remember your coping strategies when you're feeling such intense things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but that's where the forgiveness came in, and I was like, look, You may have just like had a bit of an ugly cry, but look at all the shit you're going through. So give yourself a break. And every time I said give yourself a break, I gave myself a little piece of evidence that said it was fine. That
Yeah.
actually I might have had an ugly cry and I might have been anxious and depressed, but that wasn't a bad thing.
Absolutely. That's the thing. It's like that's one of the things I am learning right now, actually, through speaking to my own coach, is giving yourself the permission to be emotional.
Yeah.
Experience your emotions. It's one of those things that personally for me I pushed aside because I was taught that you have to get over it and move on. That's strength. And actually
Yeah.
that's really negative, and
Yeah.
pushing all those emotions down just means that you're not dealing with them and they're building up. So
Exactly.
you've got to give yourself permission to, be able to feel your feelings so that you're able to like tackle them and move to the next step, but not pushing it away, but moving with it and having it as almost like your secret weapon. Because eventually you'll get to the point where you're like, okay, I know the triggers that make me feel a certain sort of like negative feeling, and
Mm.
then you're like, right, okay, I understand that, and you're able to like deal with it better. um I mean, I think between both of us, mental health is one of those things that is so important. It means a lot to us. I think that's the same for a lot of people. Have you ever considered like taking it up as like a job before, like training more
Um,
in it and like maybe helping people that way?
Well, I am trained in children's mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to, as a part of my job, do like children's counseling and anger management and therapy and stuff.
Nice.
So being a teacher is never just teaching, sadly. They always make you take on extra things, or you end up being a teacher with a specialism in this, that, or the other.
Right.
And I have had, so for mental health in general, I have had counseling since I was like 12. And
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, and again, I'm saying things here that I would share in my chat like every day because
Mm-hmm.
I like normalizing it, for example,
Of
because people
course.
come into my people come into my chat. And it's something I see quite often. People come into my chat and say, "Oh, but I don't want to bring down your stream, and I don't want to this," and I'm like, "Fuck that. We're human beings.
Yeah.
Don't like if you want to talk about the crappy day you've had, just share it, and we'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, me too." I've had like counseling and stuff since I was 12. I've been like a peer counselor. I did all that kind of stuff growing up and
Mm-hmm.
appreciated it. So when I like in teaching, I noticed I was dealing with a lot of children that were starting to develop mental health issues because I'd
Mm-hmm.
had mental health issues myself growing up, and I was always perplexed that none of the other adults around me were noticing that children had mental health issues, and it really bugged me.
Wow. Wow.
They were just like, "Timmy's really angry. Oh, Sarah, stop crying." And I'm like, these children are like angry or depressed because modern life is not easy.
Yeah.
Timmy goes home because I also saw like the vulnerable side of children and their families. Like Timmy goes home and eats like 2 pieces of bread for dinner, or Sarah's
Yeah.
older sister, does things. They don't want to bring the mood down, but Sarah's older sister does things, at home,
Yeah.
and it's not nice. And these are the things that like children deal with in some parts of the country.
Yeah.
And so I would always have children and and I'd notice and I basically get permission from either their parents or from my head to be like, "Hey, I actually have some mental health strategies, and if you allow me to approach this from a mental health point of view, I think I can help your child. But just understand the way that I work is I work very transparently. Like I don't sugarcoat mental health and say to a child, we're going to think of an angry monster and how you can tame the monster. I tell
Yeah.
children how it is. You're getting a bit angry. I'm going to teach you some strategies to control your anger because otherwise they don't understand that they have an anger problem.
Yeah.
Although labeling can be another thing in itself, but
Mm-hmm.
like for example, the best case I had with this sort of thing was it was basically a tiny version of me. I was teaching, and it was a little kid. He loved Smash Brothers. He loved Super Mario. He loved
Oh.
games, and he was in a class of lads who loved
Oh.
girls. And he was inside a break crying every day. And if he ever put up his hand up in class and answered the question, and the lads laughed at him, he'd run out crying. And he
Oh.
ended up running out every day. Every single day he was running out because he just couldn't control himself. And he literally said, "I just don't know what comes over me. I feel like I need to get out, and I've got these headaches." And I was like, anxiousness.
Yeah.
That's anxiousness, and I empathize with you so heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And that kid came back to my class for an entire year when he went to year 7. He went to year
Aw.
7, and he came back every day and said, "Thanks, Mr. Smith. Like, you have no idea the
Aw.
strategies you taught me, like, help me control my anxiousness, and I see people struggling and I don't." And I'm like,
Ah, that's so
"Yes."
cool.
So that's like, yeah, so I would love to go into that as a profession, but I think that it's one of those things where, being a vulnerable person myself at times, I would probably struggle with the weight of it, because sometimes I would struggle with the weight of it with these kids that I worked with, and I kind of like the position that I'm in where I can dabble in it and dabble out of it with either like a
Yeah.
Twitch viewer or a friend, because I have
Mhm.
to be careful on Twitch, because like I think there's a guy called Dr. Grizzly, and he is a qualified mental health professional for adults, and he kind
Okay.
of advertises the fact. I always have to like say in my chat, I'm not qualified to work with adults, but I'm
Yeah.
qualified to work with children, so take what I say with a pinch of salt.
Mhm.
My channel is not like Final Fantasy 14 therapy, but it's not making it sound
It
like
could be though.
oh, it could be. I could do like ASMR healing crystals. But yeah, so I don't think I'd go into it, just because I'd have to like value my own mental health around it.
Yeah.
I've done my bit, and I think I'm happy with the knowledge that I have and how I use it.
Yeah, I think that's freaking awesome. And, you know, using what you're trained in and your skill set and your experience with children and, you know, with your community, or just in general with, you know, with Twitch chat and the wider Twitchverse, I think that that's something to be very proud of, Ostardva. Very proud of.
Thank you.
So, you are we're all coming up to the end of 2021. Holy moly, can you believe it? What is your plans going into next year?
My plans going into next year, like elephant in the room in terms of Twitch, I want to basically, I've only been streaming like 1 day a week, if two, like for the turbulence that's been going on in my life the last like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
I want to get back to like my 2, maybe 3 sometimes for Twitch, just because I know I'm capable of it and I actually enjoy it, and I've got plenty of video games I want to play. And to take some skills I've sort of learned from either being in a stream team or watching streamers that I think are really good and do it well, and like pick up the things I know I'm capable of, like scheduling my social media and things like that. In terms of like other goals, it's weird. Because I've dropped my personal trainer recently. I've almost like, I don't have any like I want to get mega buff and stuff, because I'm actually happy with my body how it is, and I realize I don't need to get buff to be happy and stuff. I don't. It's nice not to have many goals at the moment, because I mean, I'm not a goal-focused person anyway, because I'm more about process. And that sounds so pretentious and all about the process. But one unhealthy thing for me has been goal setting. I've like grown up. I've been conditioned, but it's my fault for taking it on. Is I've grown up to like, I have to meet certain standards and achieve certain things. Like, oh, my brother got straight A's at school, so I need to get straight A's, and you know, my family do X, Y, and Z, so I should. And I've gone through that and said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not an A grade student, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned from like COVID and doing the working out stuff is to enjoy the process, and very much like that with Twitch. So someone's like, hey, I'm going to hit my first 100 followers. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but what's your process? Like, because otherwise, every time you stream, you're going to be sad you're not on 100 followers.
Yeah.
Instead, like, be really present and mindful of like, what are you enjoying about your stream today, and what are you going to enjoy about your stream tomorrow? Like, I try to focus on that kind of stuff instead.
Yeah, that's freaking good advice though.
Because otherwise you just get really bogged down in like, oh, I'm not on this stream team yet, which is what I used to do. I used to beat myself up every time I didn't get onto a certain stream team. And I've only ever been on one, but I got rejected from a well-known team quite a few times. And I got so bummed out every time, and then ignored the fact that I'd actually pushed up my stats for this stream team. But I did that, and I should have been grateful for that in the process. And yeah, so I try to be very process focused, because otherwise you just, goals can really weigh me down. But that's just me personally. It's like I said to you earlier, I have my puppy energy, and that's kind of probably I am literally just like a golden retriever running around after a sprinkler in a garden. That is literally me.
That's adorable, though.
I enjoy running after the sprinkler. If I achieve the goal of getting clean, that's just probably a byproduct.
I enjoy running after my tail. If I catch it, then great. If not, I just like running around.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that with goals. In like, you know, I could set a goal and say I want 2,000 followers on Twitch. But what I'm going to do is actually just enjoy streaming, and if I hit them, I'm like, huh, neat.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's interesting because like I am like, for me personally, I'm stuck in the goal orientated high standards kind of life pattern, I guess. Like I'll be the person that will like have my standards way too high, and then if I don't meet this goal by this time, usually by yesterday, then I like really beat myself up about it. So being able to enjoy the process, as you say, like is something that I'm learning right now. And it's really like when you do it, because it takes a lot of practice, because you're not gonna be there right away, but you do have to constantly remind yourself, like where we're saying about mental health and how it's like an active thing. For me, that's part of my like mental health well-being, is reminding myself about that process. And I think that that's definitely good advice for anyone, really, to just enjoy, you know, life is an adventure. I heard recently actually that, you know, you are your, I think I said this to you before, you're your star of your life. You are your life is like your movie and you're the star. Like make it the way you want to be and how you want to be remembered, or not remembered, that's so morbid. How you want to be seen by people.
Ost was a thirsty bitch on Twitch.
Wait, aren't we all? So what would be the biggest lesson for you in terms of your journey so far on Twitch? Biggest thing you've learned?
I mean, apart from the like process thing, I think a few other streamers have said this, but it's just a network, which I don't do. But network in any way and amount that you can. There's no prescription when it comes to success. And that's, oh god, I sound like an absolute douche. But like there isn't, like you could, like I say, you could have like this goal of like I want to be X, I want my concurrent viewer count to be this big or whatever. But those goals can blind you to the process, and so that it's more like networking will help you in so many ways. Like making, whether you make one friend in someone's stream or 10 friends, they are both as valuable to you on your journey. And that would be networking on Twitter by replying to someone, if that's what you want to do. That would be just going into someone's chat and becoming a bit of a regular. Because some people that come to my streams are friends I've made in other chats. And that has been really valuable for me. You can get really hung up on like trying to do all of the elements of being a streamer and forget to actually be a Twitch user. Like you can be like, oh, I've got to like schedule like 10 tweets this week, and then I need to make this thumbnail and post on Discord so my community know that I'm active. But if nobody actually sees you on Twitch, then like you're kind of, well, as in like that it's your name in a chat and things like that, and then you're kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. And I've realized that a little bit, and I've tried to be a bit more on Twitch now and then. Like I watch you when I'm at work, for example. You know, so I do that in the afternoons. I finish my lunch break and you're live, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go in, and I'm starting to speak to more people in your chat that, you know, and it sort of looks like Jally, Dresden, Obi. Like the more I speak to those sorts of people, and it's the same for anyone else streaming, you'll keep on speaking to these people, and eventually they'll be like, I wonder what they're doing. And they'll like click on your name when you're live, or they'll follow you just in case, or they'll hover over your profile and notice that you have followers, and so they'll follow you because they realize you're streaming. This is like I guess this is like for you actually, in terms of how you did it and how Marley did it. And like, for example, Mahoney, when Mahoney did like his charity stream, and this is kind of a good, I think Mahoney's kind of a good case in point actually, now that I think about it, to sort of back up my evidence. So Mahoney, I don't know how many he started on. He must have like 2 or 3 followers, I think. And when he did his charity stream, after he'd been on Twitch for years as like a well-known viewer in communities, he went up to like 30 or 40 in his first stream, which is great, you know. And that shows the power of networking and basically making a couple of friends.
I was just about to go, the power of friendship.
The power of friendship. Well, he's now my boyfriend, so you know, like, yay. But yeah, I just keep it simple. There is no, like I was being pretentious earlier, there is no prescription to success on Twitch. So whatever you do it little and do it often. Don't punish yourself for the amount that you're not doing or whatever. Just do it little and do it often and enjoy the process.
Can you be my therapist? Can you teach me these things?
I can for a $2.99 sub a month.
Well, thank you so much for coming to my coffee date. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I learned so much from you, Ostardva. Thank you so much for that.
That's okay. Anytime. I want to come back.
Hopefully we can have people come back and we can chat more about other stuff. But where can people find you? Yourself?
Shout myself. So Ostardva. I'm not going to interpret the spelling how you will. I'm sure Brooke will put it somewhere.
I will.
But I can be found on Twitch. I stream on Sundays at sort of around 11 a.m. UK time. I'm trying to work into like other days of the week. Normally I stream on Thursday evenings after work sometimes. I can be found on Twitter under the same username. I tweet more often than not. Instagram. I have a Discord as well, but you know, that is what it is. But mainly can be found on Twitch and Twitter. And a little bit of Instagram sometimes. And on Final Fantasy 14, I am on Light Phoenix, best server.
Yes, best server.
So yeah, Light Phoenix for 14. So if you ever need a roulette running or a good old tank, I'm there. I'm doing it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
That's all right.